Yeah, wonderful to have you with us. One of the main messages of the report is that labor policies, in a broad sense, should be on a plateau and that policymakers should avoid two cliffs. What is your assessment of that finding?
I think it is actually a correct assessment of what's going on. I think in the past we felt that you have to have the policies just right and that the same policy applies equally across different settings. I think we're finding from empirical work and institutional work as well that in some sense what matters is the entire environment, and that one can compensate one policy with another, that they complement each other, so that indeed, so long as you have a set of policies that are complementary, that work together, it doesn't matter so much where exactly you are. I'll give you an example. So in Germany, for instance, there is a very highly organized, unionized labor market, but also you have employees through workers' councils, participation in management, very much contributing to the innovation and flexibility. In a way, if a German firm wants to establish a company elsewhere, a plant elsewhere, the workers approve it. And so you would think that the unions would never approve it, but they actually do. So here you can see that having a unionized sector, unionized firms, and at the same time relatively flexible, globally flexible company is quite feasible.
Derived from that, if labor policies are actually more modest in their impact than we have thought, when we think about jobs, the report argues we need to really think outside the labor market in terms of urbanization, agriculture, productivity. Does that provide a really new optic for us to think and help policymakers with?
I think it broadens the optic. I think we always knew that other markets and other policies were relevant, but we were compartmentalized enough in our upbringing, so to speak, as academics and policymakers that we were focusing on the market in which we were working. And now we are realizing that, let's say, more broadly, tax policies may influence the labor market and not just tax on labor, but taxes elsewhere as well. So it's not to downplay the role of economics, it's more to kind of realize that we've moved to the next stage where we realize that the entirety of a set of policies and institutional settings matter, and that we need to understand the totality of it in order to derive conclusions and create policies that really make sense.
The report asked the question whether we need to rethink the mantra of protecting workers rather than jobs, and argues that job protection in some instances makes sense. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I think especially the last few years with the financial crisis and the resulting economic recession, the Great Recession, indicates that, especially in the short run, it doesn't make sense to close down plants or lay off a lot of workers because it's costly, both layoffs and the rehires, loss of skills and so on. And that, in fact, adjusting on the wage or hours of work rather than on the number of bodies, number of workers and so on, and destroying jobs entirely for a temporary period of time, it just doesn't make sense. And I think, again, number of countries in Europe, but elsewhere, introducing the shorter work week where it's partially borne by government, which saves, again, tax money that it would otherwise have used on unemployment benefits, partially the employees, partially employers. I think in some cases the workers are equally well off because they have more leisure, so they can have a longer weekend, let's say, if they work 4 days a week. So I think we're seeing that indeed this is just one particular set of examples that one needs to think out of the box. And while in the long run, I think we want a flexible system where indeed we allow the workers to move across different types of jobs and so on. So we give them kind of the long-term protection as moving across and insurance type policies. In the short run, one certainly shouldn't adjust blindly on the labor margin, so to speak, on the employment margin, and on closing down firms in the short run as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay.